Welcome back, everybody, to another fundamental movement lesson. In today's video, we are going to be discovering the most basic kettlebell move that we can get into, which is going to be the kettlebell swing. Now, this is the first video out of a series of videos teaching you guys how to properly utilize a kettlebell and essentially learn the basic fundamental movements of the kettlebell, such as the clean and snatch, the clean and press, etc. Now, I wanted to start with this video and I want to get right into it, breaking it down into 3 phases to get you guys to really understand how to perform the kettlebell swing in a way that's going to honor and protect the integrity of your spine. So, first off, if you are part of the Align Movement course, then you already know the basics of the hip hinge, the basics of how to stand properly, creating a wide foot, creating stability from the ground up. And that's pretty much going to be the first phase of what I'm going to be teaching today. So if you have not yet looked at the fundamental movement lessons within the phases of the Aligned Movement course, getting into the hip hinge, then I highly recommend you go back to that and rewatch it or watch it for the first time so you can understand some of the terminology and language that I'll be using in this video. In this video specifically, I do want to lay out basic information such as the stretch reflex and momentum-based movement. That way we have the education and the understanding to really back up why we're utilizing the kettlebell and how we're utilizing the natural reflexes within the body to help us perform the kettlebell movements. So let's get into the stretch reflex. So the stretch reflex, as you guys may know, is a basic reflex that the body offers when we create a quick stretch within a tendon or within a muscle. By creating a quick stretch within that tendon, the muscle is going to contract. Now, many of us are familiar with going to the doctor's office and maybe getting a reflex test where they hit the hammer on the knee and that patellar tendon will get hit and the knee will shoot up. That's because the tendon is receiving a quick stretch. That quick stretch is telling the brain that the muscle is being stretched too much. And as a reflex to protect the body, the muscle will involuntarily contract, which will create the kicking of the leg. Now, essentially with the kettlebell, we're doing the same thing. These are very quick, explosive movements. And the stretch reflex, if you guys understand it properly, will be utilized to your advantage. Now, I wanted to lay that out because later on in the video, when we get into the swing phase, we'll be referring back to that. So let's break it down. Phase 1 of this is going to be the starting position and breath mechanics. So the starting position of the kettlebell is essentially going to be our hip hinge position. Now, before we even get into the kettlebell swing, I want you guys to practice hip hinging utilizing the weight of the kettlebell. Basically, the kettlebell is going to sit right in between our feet here. We're going to go feet a little bit wider than shoulder width apart, slightly turned outwards. We're going to create the wide base within our foot by flaring the toes up, letting the pinky hit the ground first and the big toe hit the ground last, remembering that we're standing on the 3 points of contact within our foot, creating that tripod stable base. From here, we're simply going to hinge at the hips, but before we hinge, we want to kind of take that breath lift. That breath lift is going to create space, intra-abdominal space and pressure within our bodies. So we're going to take the inhale together. Feel almost how essentially you're breathing in like a hot air balloon, and that hot air balloon is starting to lift up, but your pelvis and your feet are the basket, and that's going to remain fixed to the ground. That breath has got to lift you up and create space and stability within the body. You're going to exhale that breath and maintain the space you've created. You're going to hinge at the hips by drawing the butt back, remembering that every time you hinge, you're going to hinge until you feel that stretch in your hamstrings. Now from here, simply reach down, engage your lats. So don't bend forward and flex, losing the neutral spine. You want to be able to bend forward, engage your lats by slightly drawing your elbows in towards each other like so, and do a slight retraction of your scapula. And you're going to instantly feel your lats and upper body engage. You're going to hold on to that kettlebell and you're going to lift up from that hinge. Now remember, when you lift up from the hinge, in order to engage the glutes, the hamstrings, and the adductor properly, you're going to imagine as if you're drawing the floor in towards each other. You're drawing your feet in towards each other. That's going to turn on your adductors. You're also going to imagine that you're drawing the heels back. So essentially, as we've been learning throughout this entire course of how to hip hinge, you're going to be drawing the heels back and in. And it's just going to be imaginary. You're going to keep your feet planted. That way, you're engaging the entire posterior chain as well as the adductors here. So just a couple of these. Practice hinging with the kettlebell. We're going to now, continuing into phase one, we're going to get into the official starting position. Kettlebell is going to be slightly in front of our toes, out in front of us. We're going to do the same thing, hinge at the hips. We're going to reach down, engage the lats, bring the elbows in, slightly retract the scapula, and we're going to lift up. And as soon as you lift up, the kettlebell's naturally going to want to swing backwards. And that's going to be the second phase of what we're going to be getting into, the natural swing back. So lifting up, the kettlebell is going to swing back. Now, how do I want you guys to breathe here? I want you to take an inhale as you're lifting the kettlebell up. That's going to protect your spine. So it's got to look like this. From here, what happens, just like a pendulum, there's going to be momentum that's going to be initiated. So when the kettlebell swings back, it naturally will hit a point where it wants to start to swing forward. From here, we're going to engage that stretch reflex, which will naturally happen if you guys just pay attention to it here. You're going to swing. The kettlebell is going to produce momentum. It's going to hit a halt point before it swings back forward. When it wants to swing forward, you're simply going to engage that hip hinge and allow the kettlebell to swing up. So phase one was the initial starting position. Phase two was lifting the kettlebell up and allowing it to swing backwards. Phase three is going to be going from this backward swing, utilizing momentum and allowing the kettlebell to swing forward. Going with the momentum as it swings forward, you're simply going to continue that hip hinge, contracting your hamstrings, adductors, and glutes at the top. Now, a couple things I want you guys to pay attention to. As we're swinging, coming up, you're going to breathe out. As we're coming down, you're going to breathe in. So I'm going to exaggerate it here so you guys can really understand the breath mechanics. Another thing here is paying attention to my elbows. They're close to my body. They're not far. I'm not swinging out like this. Although you can do this, I just don't recommend it because the farther your elbows are away from you, the more likely you're going to get injured. So keeping those elbows tucked in, and when you swing up, you're simply going to pretend you're doing like a little bicep curl. So the swing is going to look like this. So like this instead of this. Like this instead of this. Like this instead of this. And that's essentially the three phases of how to perform the kettlebell swing. Now, what are the common mistakes that you guys can avoid that I typically see most people do when they're performing the kettlebell swing if they've never done it before? They don't hinge properly, but you guys already know how to hip hinge because you've been following along the aligned movement course. But just remember, we're hinging, we're putting the butt back, we're not squatting, we're hinging. You can squat, it's just a completely different exercise and workout while using the kettlebell. So the hinge, you want to make sure you're hinging. You want to make sure the elbows are close to your body, the lats are engaged, the scapula is slightly retracted, creating the engagement between the entire posterior chain. And you want to make sure you're not flailing that kettlebell around, right? So let's put those three phases together and do it all at once here. Again, this is an explosive movement. Kettlebell training is all about coordination, stability, mobility, and explosiveness here. We're going to be utilizing the momentum and the stretch reflex technique, allowing the stretch to be performed in our hamstrings, glutes, and adductors to create the contraction that shoots us up into the air. So now that we learned how to perform the kettlebell swing properly with two hands, let's practice it with one hand, and then let's pass the kettlebell between our right and our left hand. So same exact starting position, except you're going to reach down with, in this case, my right hand. When I do this, I like to keep my left hand, or the hand that I'm not grabbing the kettlebell with, free. That helps me create balance and stability within my system. From here, same exact mechanics as the two-handed swing. When I get to the top, again, like a pendulum, there's a natural point where the kettlebell will want to stop midair. From that point, you're going to switch hands and grab it. So you have to play with this and really feel. You can even twist it. So if you could see, I'm rotating the kettlebell around before I grab it. Or you can keep it in the same position. It comes up and then it free falls down, and as it's falling, you grab it. As it's falling, you grab it. As it's falling, you grab it. And you're just utilizing that momentum. I invite you guys to play with this because this will help you as we get further along in the course and we're passing the kettlebell from our right to our left hand, doing a clean and press. As always, guys, pay attention to how your body is feeling. Nobody knows your body like you know your body. This is not a one-size-fits-all tutorial. I invite you guys to take this as inspiration as I'm just laying down the fundamental principles of how to utilize a kettlebell in a safe way. I want you to really play with swinging it back and forth, play with passing it from one hand to the other, and even get involved in rotating it as you're swinging, right? Until next time, we will see you in the next video. Peace.